Welcome to Fun and Fundraising, everybody, the podcast where we talk with people behind top nonprofit galas and signature fundraising events to showcase how they positively transform their communities. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, and today I'm really excited to have two very special guests on. So we have Joni Craig and Dorothea Meltzer. Joni Craig is the chair of the upcoming Women's Council of Dallas Arboretum's fall signature fundraising event, which is a Writers Garden literary symposium and luncheon. And Dorothea is advising on this particular event. And for anyone who has not visited the Dallas Arboretum, it really is one of the most spectacular green spaces I've ever been, ever gotten the good fortune to go walk through and be a part of. So if you're ever in the North Texas region, it definitely should be on your top list of things to go and visit. And with that, Joni, Dorothea, welcome. And I'm so excited to have you both on as guests today.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Absolutely. So I'm going to address this first question to Joni. So talk a little bit about what the mission is of the Women's Council of the Dallas Arboretum.
I think the mission is to build, maintain, a garden dedicated to the spirit of women. The proceeds from our membership dues, special events, all goes to support the Women's Garden from the Women's Council. The Women's Council also watches over the care and maintenance of the garden, as well as watches the yearly budget. We have a commitment and there's a passion from most of us, if not all of us, to commit to the quality of the garden and what we plant and to maintain and upkeep it, because it is located in one of the most beautiful arboretums and botanical gardens in the world.
Absolutely. And like I said, it really is a beautiful, it really is a beautiful space. And I'm glad that, you mentioned, it's a group and people join it and that, they pay annual dues. And, part of that, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, is the signature fundraising events that you do. You have a fall one and a spring one, and we're going to talk about the fall one today. But before we dive into that a little bit more deeply, I'm always interested when I talk with people about events, how they get involved with organizations. So I'd love to ask each of you, and with this one, I'd love to start with Dorothea, but I'd love to hear how you got involved with the Women's Council and why it's an organization that you choose that organization to spend, your time supporting.
When my husband and I moved here about 21 years ago, I was looking after we were settled and sort of had the lay of the land. I was looking for an organization that had similar interests that I had, and one that also involved civic, not just the ideas of friendship and learning new things, but also that would make an impact on the North Texas area where we had moved to. And when I was living in the Philadelphia, South Jersey area, I was very involved with the Pennsylvania Horticultural Society. This is one of the premier organizations in the world that is dedicated to the maintenance, development of gardens and green spaces within the city of Philadelphia. Every year they have an enormous flower show that 500,000 people attend. And I enjoyed so much. I was a member of that even before I had my first child because my grandmother belonged to it. And so through the years, I had the opportunity to be a volunteer for the organization in many responsible ways. And when I missed that when we moved here to Texas, and one of the women who was on the board of a women's council who was coming into my business was always talking about it. And she invited me to come to a meeting. And I was just thrilled to find out about this wonderful organization that was separate from the Arboretum in the sense that their mission was to develop this beautiful garden, a woman's garden. And the rest is kind of getting involved on the same level I had with PHS in Philadelphia. And it's been a wonderful journey and it's enriched my lives in so many ways.
That's a fantastic answer. And I want to do one follow-up question because, you had mentioned, you had joined the organization after moving from another market. So for anyone that's moving to a new city, talk about how important getting involved was to you establishing community roots and building a network through this organization.
I think it's a very important thing for particularly for someone who we moved here and our children had left the nest, so to speak. Oftentimes, you develop those lifelong friendships with people through your children and the various activities that they're part of, and you want to be part of as well. But when you get older, and particularly if you move to a far away, very different environment and community, and you're looking for that after your religious choices in your church or your synagogue, the things that just add that other special dimension to making life special in your new home. I think it's very important that you reach out to do things that were meaningful to you in the past. You bring that expertise and that love of the of whatever the mission is to an organization you might try to be want to be part of.
Absolutely. And the thing I love about your answer too is that you're also going to bring a little bit of a different lens and perspective because you came from a different, geography. And we've talked on this podcast before how cities are often people with unique personalities. And having been born in Philadelphia myself, I can, test to the personality of Philadelphia might be different from Dallas, but it doesn't mean that you can't bring some of those great ideas you have from the market you came from and infuse it and put your own spin on it, to really propel an organization forward. So I really loved that answer and hearing your journey on that. And with that, Joni, I'd love to hear how you got involved, and you're a native of Dallas. So I'd love to hear how you initially got involved with the Women's Council.
Well, after being involved in philanthropic work in my 30s and then kind of stopping it to raise my child and be involved with her, I got involved with the Women's Council by attending a Mad Hatter's tea. And I loved the energy of it and found out that it actually benefited the women's garden inside the Arboretum. So I joined the Women's Council and I loved the energy and passion of the members. I saw how much fun they were having while still working to support a cause, a wonderful cause that's actually shared with over 1 million visitors from all over the world, because over 1 million visitors come to visit the Arboretum. And when they do, the majority of them go to the women's garden.
Well, absolutely. And, the one thing, and in Texas in particular, there are just so many different types of organizations, and a lot of people have multiple passions. But I'd love to hear each of your takes on this. And Dorothy, I'd like for you to go first, and then Joni, I'd like for you to follow. And Dorothy, and you in particular, your interest in green spaces really kind of comes from a child. So what has made you so passionate about green spaces that it's really kind of carried as almost like a through line certainly in your adult life, if not, even your childhood?
Well, in addition to being growing up in the Philadelphia area, we also, as we were not known as shoebies. You'll know what that term is, going to the shore.
Yes.
But we had a home at the shore as well, and so my parents and particularly my grandmother was always involved in things that had to do with the natural environment. So being at the shore, the ocean, the beaches, the wetlands, and I don't know. I've just always felt that it was central to who I was, and from a younger age than even as an adult. And I think that one of the things that impressed us so much about coming here to Dallas, we would visit often because we had family here, was this wonderful sense of community in wanting Dallas to be the best. And people were not only willing to donate their time and their expertise to doing that, but also it's such a philanthropic city. And as you say, you do have a lot to choose from, but I think nature calls to all of us. And it's sort of a unifier of all the groups in that it's central to who we are as human beings.
Absolutely. And Joni, I'd love to hear your take on that, because like you said, once your child was, more independent and you were able to get involved again, what about the Dallas Arboretum? What struck a passion in you that you got involved to the point where, you're actually chairing events for the organization now?
Well, I love to raise money for a cause that I believe in. And I'm really passionate about the Arboretum, a lot because of the memories it holds going back to my daughter. I remember, taking my daughter there with the tulips blooming, and the photographer would bring a bunny to take Easter pictures. And I remember going on kindergarten field trips that just below the camp house, there's a great big green space. And you would see these kids just with such carefree abandon roll down the green space and just run around, and just a place of fun and beauty. And, later on now as an adult, it's one of the most beautiful and peaceful gardens in the world. And I've been to gardens all over the world. And one of the other most special ones is Kirstenbach Gardens in Cape Town. But again, I think the Dallas Arboretum tops that. The flowers, the green spaces, even in fall, the pumpkins, thousands of pumpkins, which during Writer's Garden, they'll be able to see. It's just, there's so much movement, and you never know what scene you'll be able to see because there's such change there, and each change is just even more spectacular.
Absolutely. And, I want to ask you another question, Joni, and it's touching upon something you had mentioned in passing earlier in this conversation. So, you had mentioned you had gotten initially involved by attending a Mad Hatters. And one of the things that
Right.
I've always noticed, about the Women's Council is many of the women who get involved, they're involved with it for years, if not decades. And, I'd love to share, and especially as a chair from your point of view, what advice would you give to an organization that wants to build a loyal following where people are coming back, they're paying their dues every year, and it really kind of builds this wonderful, thriving community?
I think making each member feel important and viable to the organization, to be friends with them, we have teas, we have events to get to know one another, and to where they're not just a name and a check or credit card paying dues, to know that they're important. For me, I think a pivotal point for me was a past president asked me to chair the end of the year couples event, and that became the spring fiesta in the garden. And I've done that now for 3 years, and that is another one of my passions because it brings people together, and again, they can have fun while helping a worthy cause. We do meaningful, fun projects. It's just involvement, and to have each member feel that they're a viable part of the organization.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up the fact that, it's more, membership is more than cutting a check and see you next year. I love that
That's right.
you all do the smaller, more intimate events because that allows true friendships to form. And, hearing you talk about that, it suddenly like something you said made it click in me is that that's why the Arboretum's always so successful. And that's why both, the Writers Garden and Mad Hatters are such wonderful must-attend events is you as an organization cultivate relationships year-round that creates this community, that creates this camaraderie. And, people want to be together, and it's really building those relationships. So I'm really glad you brought that part up.
Yeah, and if I might add, you know, not only do we do Mad Hatter's and Writer's Garden, we have a spring trip and a fall trip. We have cooking schools. There's several events, smaller events, throughout the entire year to foster friendship.
Absolutely. And, you know, the smaller events and the fostering of the friendships really, they culminate with two events. And we're here to talk about, you know, the Writer's Garden today. So I'd love for
Right.
you to talk a little bit about the inspiration for a Writer's Garden, which is, it's an annual symposium and luncheon. So share with us a little bit about the event itself. Thea, I would love for you to share a little bit about the inspiration for a Writer's Garden, the annual symposium and luncheon.
Joni talked about the uniqueness of our membership model in the sense that we want to be sure that people are involved, that we give people have an opportunity to learn things. And our garden is just a perfect place to, the perfect background to develop meetings and programming where people can learn more or learn about new things. Or just to have the enjoyment of being together. In 1983, which is when the Writers' Garden began, the thought was to have something that was going to draw more people to come and visit, a program that would draw more members into the garden to actually see where their dollars were going, how well we were doing with the garden development. And we were really so fortunate to have Margaret McDermott and Virginia Nick as our founders of this organization, because they understood how important it was for the people involved. They're going to work like crazy to make sure it's successful. So Writer's Garden was initially, our Mad Hatters had been in place for years. And the thought here was that there would be an opportunity to develop deeper friendships and more people to come in and see the garden. So originally there were 3 events that came under the umbrella of a writer's garden. One involved art classes in the garden. One had a special event in the evening, and one had the presentation of several authors on topics about the garden. So through the years, it has come down now to just one event where all the effort is put into making a presentation that will be widely enjoyed, and also to get people excited about learning something new or hearing someone who is a celebrity, just someone who can share their information about gardens, art, interior design, sculpture, and sometimes personalities, people who have had such a huge impact on gardens in America and around the world. So we've enjoyed an event that continues to grow. We anticipate having over 325 people this coming year. And several years ago, we had the honor of bringing from England the Countess of Carnarvon, which for those of you who are listening, is where the Downton Abbey was filmed. And this was a hugely successful event and has kind of led us on a path for looking for people who, as celebrities, can help us expand our audiences as well as let them learn something.
That was a beautiful answer. It's beautiful, almost like the way you talk, Dorothea. There's just a visualization component that comes along with it, and I think everyone knows what Highclere Castle, which is where Downton Abbey was based, looks like. And you brought up a couple of really interesting pieces in your response, and I definitely want to dive into both of those a little bit. First is, you had mentioned, there are writers, that will be speaking at the symposium, and they do a whole array of topics. And I'd love to hear, and either one of you feel free to, chime in and go first, but talk a little bit about how the organization selects the writers and other guest speakers that they want to invite and include at the symposium? Because you all have a lot of members and there's a lot of different points of view. So how do you all as a group, whittle it down to, I want to have this point of view and I want to invite these writers?
Dorothea and I did it with a totally collective effort and mutual respect. Dorothea has been my mentor and my advisor through this journey because she has a tremendous amount of experience with Writer's Garden. And she presented some authors that we knew might be available, and I wasn't crazy about them. I presented some to her and she wasn't crazy about it, but we came across two authors that, after doing a lot of legwork and being turned down, or the cost was prohibitive, we found two authors that we just can't wait for. Would you agree, Dorothea?
Oh, definitely. Yes.
Now, would you all be able to share a little bit about who you all have, coming from an author perspective this year?
We have and I have to say this because I've even shown his picture to I'm just going to stop there. We have Martin Lawrence Bullard, who is an internationally renowned interior designer from England. He's based in LA. His claim to fame is he is the designer for Cher. In fact, she wrote the foreword in his recently published book. Elton John, the Kardashians, Cheryl Tiegs, Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani. I never can remember her real name, but Meredith Grey on Grey's Anatomy, and even like RuPaul. So his style is eclectic, it's glamorous, it's sensational, and he is going to be discussing his book, which basically dishes on most of the people the celebrities that I mentioned, and he's just incredibly charming. So the women, and I say women because Writer's Garden is typically mostly women, they're just going to be captivated by him.
Absolutely. And, I know of Martin's work, and his work really is incredible. And it takes a certain skill because I don't think there are many people that can say they have Blake Shelton and RuPaul as a client.
Right.
So
Quite an
right
art.
there, it's like, okay, that's someone who really listens to their client and really puts out just immaculately incredible spaces. And I've seen both of their, his finished product homes in various media outlets and publications. And it's really, it's really, he is an incredibly supremely talented designer. And Dorothea, please share a little bit about the other headlining author that you all have for this year.
Well, I also want to share our theme, which is Star Style, Glamour for the Home and Garden. And we've taken the Star Style from the hint of our wonderful Martin. But joining him is going to be Stephanie Bittner. Stephanie is a wonderful writer, garden writer. She has just released for this year, her fourth book. And she is celebrated throughout California. She has a flower farm and vegetable farm in just above the Golden Gate Bridge. And she is very well known as a speaker. She is also part of what's called the Slow Flower Horticultural Group, which really pays attention to the land, to water, usage, to all the things that are the hot button topics for gardeners around the country now, not just necessarily in her neck of the woods. And her books are very accessible. There are this what they call a trade paperback format, so you can put them in your pocket, put it in your book bag, and it just keeps you in touch with all of the questions that you might need answered regarding your garden. she also shows wonderful ways to use flowers and plants in making teas, face face washes, scrubs, and things like that. And we're really looking forward to having her here. She was so engaging when Joni and I spoke with her on the telephone. She's excited to be coming to the Dallas area. She actually was born here, and then her family moved out to California. But Stephanie is someone we're very proud to be presenting this year, and we think she's a great complement to Martin's. Shall I say over the top? Because
I was going to use the
Dorothea
word
and
statement.
we are just so excited about our speakers. They're both individually just amazing.
Absolutely. So, one thing I actually, Dorothy, I'd love for you to answer this question just because, you've been involved with this event for such a long time. So, and you all had touched upon, both have touched upon certain things earlier about, headlining authors and celebrities not being available or costing too much. So what is a piece of advice you would give to an organization looking to invite a celebrity, an author, a high profile person to be a part of their nonprofit fundraising event? Like, what's the first step that they should take in making sure that it's worth it for them to do so?
Well, I think they have to have a concept in mind of how they want the programming for whatever the event is. If it's a brunch or a luncheon or an evening type of event, obviously they have to have some type of budget in mind. People, we've gone from $500,000 requests from some people down to what we felt was a manageable amount, that the name would be significant enough to spark interest of people, but that was still not going to break the bank. And many celebrities today want to be part of a wonderful organization. Joni touched on the fact that we have a worldwide reputation, and how many people come each year to see our garden reflect that reputation. So that's been helpful to us to open doors, which may not open everybody's door, but in our case it has, because we tend to be focused on the things that are of interest to our people. A lot of people, you just approach them. If you look somebody up online, there'll be want more information. You put your information in there, tell them what you're thinking about. And that most people, for the most part, are responsible, and who either personally or whoever handles their bookings, they will get back to you. Sometimes you have to wait longer than others, but generally, really well-known people expect to be compensated for their time here in town. And it's not just a celebrity, it's all the expenses that are involved with them, their travel arrangements, their accommodations and meals while they're here. And so you have to look at it, I think, very pragmatically when you make a decision to go that route.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you mentioned, that it needs to financially make sense. Don't just get a name to have a name, but get a name. And you said this very well, get a name where you're going to have impact on the event, positively, both from attendance, energy, financially, financially sustaining, whatever those things are. So I really appreciate you sharing that. And Joni, I want to address the next question to you. And you had mentioned earlier that you initially got involved with the organization through Mad Hatters. So a writer's garden is different from the other signature fundraising event, which is the Mad Hatters Luncheon. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you get members to attend, such a diverse array of events, because what the program of Mad Hatters is very different from the program of a writer's garden. So I'd love for you to talk about how you create something that allows your members to be open to attending just a wide range of experiences.
We have over 650 members now, and Mad Hatters is in the spring and a writer's garden is in the fall. Writer's Garden is a smaller, more intimate event than Mad Hatter's. Both events celebrate the friendship, the garden, and the power of women working together towards a common goal. But what we found is that through the years, different people will go to different events, or some will go to every event. People come in from out of town to attend these events. With Writer's Garden, while it's still fun, there's also a sense of learning and knowledge that comes from it. Like Stephanie will probably touch on how to make potpourri from your flowers that you go cut from your garden, or your rose petals. That's not done at Mad Hatter's. Mad Hatter's is in the spring, and it's all about the hat and the judging. They're two separate, different events.
They absolutely are.
But,
And yeah. And, having experience, I've gone to Mad Hatter's before. It just, it gives something for everybody. So if someone, is a little bit more introspective, perhaps they can, a literary symposium, or, where they get to hear from writers, it's going to be really appealing to them in, more so in a way than Mad Hatter's, where, if you're more of a fashion lover, you would definitely, have a draw to that event. So I love,
definitely.
I love that you kind of talked about summer for some, and some will do both. And that's the beauty. I think that's
Right.
to me, that's always been the beauty of your organization, and why I think it's just had such a devoted following for the last 4 decades.
I agree.
Absolutely. So I'd love to hear a little bit, and, Dorothea, you can go first, but talk a little bit about what guests can expect to experience at this year's A Writer's Garden Luncheon.
Well, I think we're so fortunate to have Joni as our chair, and as well as a number of other women who are in charge, or the chairs of the different committees. First of all, when you come to Writer's Garden this year, you are going to be just overwhelmed by how beautiful the Arboretum itself is, because it's right before the Christmas festivities start, but it's still part of autumn at the Arboretum. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Many people plan their visit to the say, I'm going to wait because I'll be at Writer's Garden. I'll get to see the gardens again then. But we've planned the format for the event is that we present our 2 speakers. We don't do Q&A. A lot of other organizations do that. Our authors are accessible both when they're offering their books for sale and signing them, as well as walking around talking to people. And so it is, when Joni is talking about it being intimate, it definitely is, with the an opportunity to really mingle with the authors and ask them questions. We have Rosie Hall, where it's held, is just a wonderful facility, and it has the latest AV equipment and sound and all of that, so you never have to worry you'll miss anything. The committee's planned a beautiful decor and a lovely lunch, and it's just a delightful way really to kick off the holidays, because it's the week before Thanksgiving. And Joni, you might want to add in 1 or 2 little teases about some special things we're doing.
Well, without giving anything away, I can say without a shadow of a doubt that this will be an experience that has never been experienced with Writer's Garden. And wouldn't you agree, Dorothea?
Yes, I would. I think we set it up.
Yeah. And what guests can expect when they walk in is to be immersed in a setting that will just, let me say, enhance the symposium with a casual elegance added in. The food, I'm just trying to, can I talk about my honorary chair for a minute?
Absolutely. I'd love to hear about the honorary chair.
So I was fortunate enough to have my dear friend, Gary Weber, support me and the Women's Council and the Arboretum. Gary, this is the first time in Women's Council history we have $100,000 honorary chair.
That's wonderful. And that
So,
that's a tremendous way to give back to that beautiful garden.
and he loves the garden, and he, through his Weber Foundation, has contributed the $100,000. So by having that large of a donation, it has not only surpassed other writers' gardens philanthropically, but it has allowed us to be a little bit more, to spend a little bit more money, but while still being mindful of having most of the proceeds go to the Women's Council.
That's fantastic. And
Does that
that,
make
you know, that's super exciting. Oh, I'm sorry, Dorothea, go ahead.
Oh, I was just thinking, I had the pleasure of meeting Gary when Joni made the appeal, and he was just so gracious, and we can't forget the generosity, but so interested. At one time, he was actually the Dallas County judge, so he was
right?
instrumental part of during the time that he was the Dallas County judge, was the whole discussion about developing the Arboretum grounds and things like that, expanding it, making it a central visitor and attraction, and for the people who lived in the North Texas area as well. So for me, when we were talking, it was like he was coming home to something that he has seen grow into this outstanding, magnificent place. And it was very lovely to have him want to be part of it again in such a substantial way.
Absolutely. And what I appreciate about that answer is that Gary has gotten to see how the organization has grown over the decades. And part of, you know, what makes an event successful is building trust. And like one of you had said something along those lines, earlier, just about either getting people to attend or getting celebrities that, into the event. That part of it is that success begets success. And if you're at it and you go at it consistently as you have, these things tend to come back, even if someone has lapsed in being financially involved or even, physically involved with the organization like Gary may have been. And that's proof testament to the work that you're doing is so dynamic and so important.
True. Very true.
Absolutely. So I know we're coming up on time here today, but I always like to end with this one question. And I'd love for Dorothea to go first, and then Joni, you can go second. And that is, what is one thing all great fundraising events have in common?
I think it's so beautiful that there is a collective will of people to give their time, in many cases their money, to make something successful. And I think that trust is central to having a fundraiser that people are confident it's going to be a lot of fun, it's going to be entertaining, and it's going to benefit just a wonderful cause that they care about.
Wonderful answer. And Joni, what about you?
For me, it's very, very simple. I think all great fundraising events, they need to be entertaining while emotionally engaging. And as Dorothea said, it brings a collective group of people together to support a common cause, but they have to be entertaining and emotionally engaging.
I love that entertainment combined with emotionally engaging. I think those are two such critical components of any successful event. And I can't think of a better word to end on than that. So Joni, Dorothea, thank you so much for taking the time today. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. And a writer's garden benefiting the Women's Council of the Dallas Arboretum and Botanical Garden will be held on November 13th, 2024 at the Dallas Arboretum in Dallas, Texas. For more information, please visit wcdabg.org. And that will do it for this episode of Fun and Fundraising. I'm your host, Rob Giardinelli, reminding you to keep it fun, keep it interesting, and your guests will have a great time. Have a great day, everyone, and take care.